Hello and welcome to Wolves Fancast. We are live and kicking it on YouTube.
With us today, Staffordshire culture.
I don't think it is that bad episode, guys. Are it? Good evening, good afternoon, good morning, wherever you're listening from. It's Rich from Wolves Fancast here. We are live on YouTube for a special episode of Wolves Fancast. It should be a great show during the international break. We know it can be a bit of a drag a lot of the times, especially with not really much to play for. So you'll have noticed we've been throwing out loads of content for you this week and going into next week. More details on that shortly. So today's episode is our next in the draft series that we did. So during the first lockdown, many moons ago, we did our best 11 of the 2010 to 2020 players. This year, we're rolling it right back to the noughties, guys. And reviewing our best players of the first decade of the new millennium. So, joining me today, we have Dan.
Hello.
Who's away, Dan? We've got Jordan.
Hello.
And we've got Andy.
Evening all. So,
on today's episode, as I said, we're going to be sort of essentially picking our best players from the 2000-2010 period. But there's a couple of parameters. So we're going to be doing it in draft style format. So we basically all get to pick a player each in turn. And so we're sort of having to use a bit of our nous. Players can play in essentially whatever position that they fit into the team. So, you know, for example, you could have Matt Jarvis as a right winger. So long as you can justify him, you can have him in your team. I think that's all fair. The other one is the players will solely be judged on their careers at Wolves and in that decade. So, for example, Paul Ince, had a very strong career in the 90s and ended his career sort of came slowly downhill at Wolves, but you can get to pick the peak time of his career at Wolves. So, that promotion season, for example. So, hopefully you've listened to one before. This year, because it's quite a visual thing, you get to sort of see what we're doing. We've really invested in sort of making sure you've got really good visibility on it. So that's why we're doing it live out on YouTube. Do make sure, if you're new to the channel, to like, share, and subscribe. We are currently running a competition to win a free Wolves home kit. If you subscribe to the page and retweet one of our latest tweets, if you scroll down our feed, you'll find it really quickly. Before we get cracking, we've just had, I was going to mention a few other shows that we're currently doing this week. So I'll pass over to Andy because one dropped just this morning. He'll be able to give you a few more details.
Yeah, we dropped a Filmcast episode. We're looking at what should be a cult classic of a film, but it turns out nobody's ever heard of. We watched A Shot at Glory, starring everybody's favourite colour commentator at the moment, Ali McCoist. It was myself, Stu, and Matt, and we just went through in our usual Filmcast selves, ranking it compared to the other films that we've watched so far. Obviously, if you go into our website, all of the Filmcast episodes are on there, so you can go through and compare and contrast all of the films yourselves.
Terrific. I was going to say, it's great listen. It's a fascinating film. It's a film starring Annie McCoist and Robert Duvall, who literally wouldn't want to watch it, guys. I was going to say, in terms of some other stuff, we've still carried on with our stories from the pack. We've been chatting to Wolves fans about their time supporting the club and how they follow those passions. Recently, we had on Dave Azzopardi from that really small time YouTube and Twitter account Talking Wolves. You might have heard of them. They're fairly unknown, but it's good listen. Really nice guy as well. And I think we're also sort of trying to do a mental health podcast as well in the next couple of weeks to make sure we can all get through this international break together. So we'll give it a couple more minutes just to make sure everyone's sort of online, ready to watch this. I guess sort of we did this last time, and I think this is always quite interesting. So we're doing this in draft format because I think it's a nice way for us to get sort of a bit competitive, to be honest. And I think how it stemmed from last time is that a couple of us in the Fancast are really big American football fans, but also I think via fantasy football as well. The idea of sort of doing drafts has sort of come about really strongly. So I'll pass over to Dan, chiefly because I know you've got a big passion for fantasy football, and you've also done draft style fantasy football before, and you and your mates put a lot of time into it, don't they?
Yeah, massive. We've been doing it for sort of 5 seasons now. The first 2 seasons we did it just draft day on a piece of paper and pens. Now we've advanced all the way to sort of software development, which you'll see later on this evening. It's something that we're massively passionate on. Draft day is one of my highlights of my calendar year, due to it's probably the only time where my group of mates actually all get together, which is a hard thing to do in today's society, pandemic or not. In regards to American football, don't really know a lot. I know Dan Marino was in Ace Ventura: Pet Detective, and that's as far as I'll go. I'm really looking forward to it. Jordan's already got the mantle of winning the last one, so I'm out to beat him tonight.
As I say, Jordan, you were on it last time with myself. You did probably pick the best team, but was that victory tainted?
In what way?
Well, I know you had an ace up your sleeve who you wanted as, essentially Mr. Forgotten, the last pick of the draft, because you ended up getting randomized to pick 4th in the draw, so you end up with the last pick as well. The fact that I had the penultimate pick and picked Dave Edwards, did that take a bit of a shine, or did you sort of think, well, you know what, you got Helder Costa instead? Was it an upgrade?
I mean, for me, as people would know, if you're asking me who's a better footballer out of Dave Edwards and Helder Costa, there was only one winner, and he went to the Euros with Wales in 2016. So, yeah, I was a little bit gutted. But you know what? It wasn't a bad person to pick as Mr. Irrelevant, as they call it in the NFL, with Helder Costa, especially when we talk about peak Helder Costa as well. So, no, look, I got the gods were on me that day in terms of getting the right picks, and I'm glad that the listeners and viewership also agreed that I had the best team on the day.
So, Andy, this is your first time essentially doing a Wolves Fancast draft show. How much, if any, preparation have you done for this, or have you left your notes in the office like other people in this chat?
No, I've got my notes here. I've printed them off. I've got 2 screens. I'm dual screening, and each screen is down into halves. So I've got 4 screens on the go. I'm going balls deep on this one.
So, for anyone who will be listening to this via our podcast in the coming days, there were noticeable jaws dropping. And I've printed them off. I'm pretty sure. Did you wave 2 pens as well? Because I know I've got a highlighter and a pen on the go. I don't know. I don't have a. Go on.
Pencil. I've got a pencil, a highlighter, my multicolour, and I've got extra highlighters just in case.
This is like Mr. Bean. This is when he does his exam.
Problem is, I've got these out. I haven't actually decided what system I'm going to employ with these. They might just be doodles, which I will share on Twitter afterwards. So
I did not realise you guys were bringing fatty magnet apparatus with you tonight.
we are
like
still
I'm a step behind here.
We are still holding that Fancast tag loud and proud about being virgins. I was going to say, shall we get going, guys, or should we give it another couple of minutes, do you reckon?
Let's get cracking.
Right, so we did do a randomized draw earlier this afternoon on YouTube. There is video verification of this being done completely legitimately, but the order is as follows. It's Andy to start with, then it's myself, then it's Jordan, then it's Dan. So as to make sure it's relatively fair, it's going to snake back down. So it'll go Andy, me, Jordan, Dan, and then Dan will get 5th pick and then back down again. So hopefully it will even itself out over 8 picks or so. So it's not going to end up massively biasing Andy over there, which I'm sure he's devastated about. But it does mean, Andy, you do get the first pick of the Wolves draft of the best 11 of 2000-2010, sir.
Wonderful. Like, the pressure is properly on now. I feel like this is going to set up the rest of the thing. So if I go with someone shit, we're in trouble.
I'll say that there'll be a level of tension that will just mount now, which is the bit that's going to,
That's it.
which is not going to do it for me, to be honest.
So I was thinking about it, and it really came down to two players for me to go first up. But I think when you're going to set up a team, you're going to want your goals in the bag. So it's going to have to be, if I can find him on this list, Sylvan Ebanks-Blake.
Good choice. I think, to be honest, I think we can all agree with that being a solid choice, can't we?
Well, yeah, 100%. That was my number one pick.
See, incidentally, it wasn't mine. Well, it isn't. Sorry, it isn't going to be mine. Shall I say? I think. Yeah, I think to confirm it, Andy, I think you just press continue again.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Sylvan
So-
Ebanks-Blake, is he even the top goal scorer in that list? Might
See,
just-
he wasn't technically my first choice striker either. So it's down to my pick now. So I'm talking the big game. I appreciate. So my first pick, if again I can find him. So I was looking at positions where I think where have we been strongest and over the years, and there was a couple of names sort of really stood out for me. So Miles Sonu, I think injuries sort of prevented him in the Premier League really hitting his top form and really making a success of it. But for me, my first pick, or pick number 2, is going to be Michael Kitely. Usually I'd build down Spiner for team first, but you know, when you've got good players across the board, you need to go for them. I was going to say, I don't think I mentioned at the top of the show, we've essentially split into 2 eras. So you've got the Dave Jones, Glenn Hoddle up to 2006, and then you've got the McCarthy era from 2006 2010. It works out there's actually a split pretty much 50-50. I think it's about 114 players in total across the 2. So the rule is you can only have a maximum of 6 players from each era. It's fairly good because actually it's relatively balanced, unlike the one we did through 2010 where it was very top heavy in the Nuno era. But do bear that in mind, gentlemen.
So I'm just having a look as... Yeah, Ebanks-Blake has really thrown me off, you know, because I had a feeling he might drop down to number 3. And what I'm going to do is, I think I'm going to pick a captain and a leader for my team to, you know, he was a stalwart historically before he came to us. I want someone to lead that team, and I'm going to go and pick Paul Ince.
Good choice.
Very good choice. It was in my first 2 picks, I'm not going to lie.
There you go.
And as we mentioned previously, I left my sheet with all my markings of players I wanted today at work. So now I'm going in blind. So if Steve Ball's not on this list, I'm up shit creek. Have you confirmed?
Sorry,
Yet?
continue now. Sorry.
Right.
Is that done now? Cool.
I believe so. So it's my turn. Once the software kicks back in, I'm not showing the list for a reason. What's your standout memories of Paul Ince, Jordan, whilst I wait for this to kick back in?
For me, so I was actually ball boy for the Glenn Hoddle season, which I think I might have mentioned on the podcast before, but if not. So my favourite ever memory of Paul Ince was actually when I was a ball boy. So I remember us playing West Ham at home, and I believe we won the game 4-2. And I always remember Paul Ince scoring, and he ran up to the West Ham fans, and he all along giving it the big, and he was getting all sorts. So Yeah, that always sticks out to me. Is one of my favourite memories of being a ball boy, just seeing Paul Ince be a proper shithouse from the West Ham fans. And I was probably only like, 2004, so I would have been 13. So I didn't really ever get that Ince West Ham rivalry until you get a bit older and you start understanding it a bit more. And actually, putting it into context now, I'm thinking, bloody hell, that was brave. Because I really didn't like him, did they?
No.
How he went off to Man U. So, yeah, it was that sort of a big one. And also, just Cardiff as well. That's obviously always a big one with Paul Ince as well, in terms of seeing him with the cup and stuff. And ultimately, him and Irwin come to do a job for us and get us out, the league and stuff. And
I mean, he was such a big personality, wasn't he? And I think we did have him at very much his twilight of his career, as said, but there were some, proper performances in there. He wasn't just quite there along for a ride. Particularly that promotion season. He was the, quote unquote governor.
Yeah, well, we had that, didn't we? When obviously we went up as well, and we signed a few more stalwarts, didn't we? Like, well, say stalwart, Oleg Luzhny. That didn't work out very well. All his experience did it. Even Stefan Everson, to some extent, just they could have come and had a paycheck with us, couldn't they? To be truthful, and I thought both him and Irwin were, they both did a fantastic job for us. You could tell the legs were going, and we got a tenth of what they could have produced, as in their prime. But for our club at that time, they were massive, weren't they?
Yeah, I think it's probably more now than, well, I think it's just as relevant now, to be honest, as it was, nearly 20 years ago. The difference between the Championship / Division 1 and the Premier League is just huge, because there are Rolls-Royce players in the Championship. Even Paul Ince, after we got relegated, was still had that bit about him when he needed to, even though he was a bit chunky. Whereas, Irwin's a great example. He could just stroll through a game playing fullback. Then when it came to the Premier League, it was just that bit too much high intensity.
Yeah, it's the legs, isn't it? Like if you've got a footballing brain, and that IQ never goes. If anything, it gets better as you get a bit older. And with Irwin, like you say, I think his legs had gone a little bit by the time we got in the Premier League. And Ince, they were going, weren't they? But we still had some good performances from him, even when we come down in that Hoddle era, because we reverted to that diamond and he sat at the base of it. And I thought he was, still very combative, but he just couldn't do the Saturday Tuesday, could he? That was the problem. And to be honest with you, there's a lot of problems with that Hoddle team. We just drew too many games, didn't we?
I think we've all sort of come to the conclusion that goals win your points in this draft fantasy world. My first pick is a striker who originally came to us on loan, and I feel like when he was put in a position, he knew where the net was. He's Scottish, and he goes by the name of Kenny Miller.
Good choice, Daniel.
So, my second pick, I'm going for a defender purely because you need players like this who have been there and done it. Whether it was at the end of his career or at the start of his career, he was always at least 8 out of 10, and that player is Dennis Irwin.
Interesting.
Then we go back to Jordan, I believe.
Yeah.
Once you've picked your players, lads, remember to refresh the page.
Continue. Right, okay, here we go. So there's someone I'm surprised is still on the board. Just because Dan's had 2 picks and hasn't picked him. And he's in my thought process. To be honest with you. But let's just have a little look. Just make sure I'm not missing anything obvious.
A lot of complaints in the YouTube comments section that the greatest player of this year hasn't been picked yet, from a guy who wants Wolves to sign John Fleck in the summer.
I wonder who that is. Right, so I'm going to leave someone who, yeah, you know what? I'm going for a defender, and you know what? You could argue his better days were, after he left the club, but still, in terms of when he was at the club, for me, he'd be in my team of my lifetime still as a defender. I thought he was a Rolls Royce. Went on to bigger and better things at the time. I wish we had a few more years of him. But my pick is Joleon Lescott.
Yeah, no arguments with that. I don't think we can have any arguments with that.
I purely was going to go for Joleon Lescott until I realised they played for West Brom, and I don't want any of that in my team. So you're a disgrace, Jordan.
He went also played for Villa as well.
Yeah, they're nothing though, aren't they?
Nah. He
So
went there, played left back, didn't he? Too fair to him.
I was going to say it's my pick now. So I had a bit of a tactic, but I'm fortunate that I've got sort of 2 picks in the next 3 goes. So I'm going to sort of chance my bets a little bit and go again. I'm going to keep it sort of quite striker heavy. I'm probably going to pick. I don't want to sort of necessarily call him the best striker in the list. He wasn't necessarily the highest goal scoring striker that we've had, but I do think he was a phenomenal footballer and all-round great guy because I got to interview him once. So with my next pick, I'm going to go for Kevin Doyle. So at the time, you've got to remember that he was our record signing of the decade as well. Came in for what was a lot of money at that point. So I think having Doyle leading the line, I can build a team around him as well up front.
Hopefully, a future guest on the pre-match chat.
Fingers crossed.
If you're watching.
And Havoc in the comments. Yes, this will be going on the usual podcast outlets.
Right, okay. So it's back to me now. I'm really annoyed because Lescott was going to be my next one. So that's kind of thrown me a little bit. I'm not quite sure. So Rich has taken the one winger that was my first choice, but thankfully he's left my second choice winger on the board. And if I can find him in the list somewhere, there we are. Mr. Matt Jarvis will be the one. I think that period of time at Wolves, he was exceptional for us. He was a proper highlight.
That has not blown up well.
That is appalling. Yeah, Matt Jarvis was a real highlight.
Was that chubby, to be honest.
Jesus. Oh, I thought that was supposed to be
Dave
Kenny
Jones,
Jackett because of the gut.
I thought it was Dave
Dean Saunders, that is.
Oh, jeez.
Bloody hellfire.
It reminds me of me. This is the first time I've worn a shirt in like 4 months. So. It ain't great after lockdown, fellas.
I think a lot of us are in the same boat, mate. So I should be.
Yeah. Oh, does this mean it's back to me then? In a sec. Oh,
yeah. 2 picks for you, Rich. No, it's not, is it?
Me,
that's just for one. Yeah.
2 picks for me.
Oh, yeah. And he gets a double pick. Apologies. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, Matt Jarvis is going to be the creative force in midfield for us. But I like someone who bursts late into the box. I like a midfielder to come out of nowhere and get a goal.
Jordan's panicking.
So there's only one choice, really, isn't there? Let's be honest. It's
refresh the main screen, Rich.
Oh, apologies.
Right, I'll try it again. Oh. I'm going to refresh mine because for some reason it's not letting me pick.
Apologies for the audio listeners.
We will not be editing.
I should have watched live though. That's what we said.
I was going to say Andy built up the momentum so well on Jarvis, and then for the next one about a midfielder who's going to burst forward and score goals.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's.
Is he just going? Is it just a blank screen, Andy?
Yeah, it is, mate.
I think we're just waiting for it to just refresh in the background. So
Okay.
Who did you pick last time?
So Matt Jarvis was my last pick. That season in the Premier League, I mean, like, we've never really had anyone in our lifetime who worked their way through the team into becoming an international player. And Matt Jarvis was the first one to do that for us, especially for England anyway. So it's such an incredible feat to actually see one of our own playing for Wolves. And it wasn't like we'd signed an international. We'd signed somebody with potential to be an international, and he managed to realise that in a Wolves shirt. So I just thought it was fantastic for us. That was really one of the highlights of that period.
Would you say Matt Jarvis is very similar in regards to Adama in their finishing output? Neither of them were really quality in front of goal, were they? But scored the occasional decent goal.
Yeah, I think you're probably right there. He had all the pace, and he terrified defenders with it. And I always just love to see him tearing it down the wing. So I was just always a big fan of Matt Jarvis. But you are probably right. He needed to get more goals. But actually, I always felt his crossing was a really good weapon. And the fact that we had someone like Fletcher in the middle to take it really helped. And compared to what we've got now, where we don't have that central focus, it doesn't. That's why I think Traore hasn't quite kicked on this season. I think if we'd have had Jimenez for the majority of the season, you'd have seen a lot better output from Traore.
You should be able to carry on with your next pick, Andrew.
Yep, we are back in. Okay, so yeah, from deep, there's only one man who's going to burst into the box. Apologies, Jordan, but it's Dave Edwards.
You know what? He is not on my draft board.
I'm very surprised he's gone this early into the draft.
I am shocked.
So am I, to be honest with you.
This is a rogue move.
There's a fan in there, Andy. There's a bit of Dave Edwards loving.
Oh yeah, I love Dave Edwards. I mean, he was important for us. He always popped up with an important goal. Like, you could rely on him. I know people who said he was a headless chicken, but he would apply pressure to defenders. He would force them into errors. And it might not be the sexiest of attributes to have, but it worked for us.
He was a far more appreciated player when we first signed him than by the end of it. And he was never going to work in an Uno team, was he? Let's be honest with you. He's never been one to spray a 50-yard pass, but I think it sort of discredits him a little bit as actually what he did for the club. And I'm not on YouTube comments, but I can imagine Gully's saying all sorts of shit in there. But once again, this guy wants to sign John Fleck in the summer, so he has nothing to say about David Woods.
The comment Gully has made is premature ejaculation.
Yeah, maybe.
Right. I believe it's back to being my pick now, isn't it?
It is, Richard.
So I'm going to let you in on a bit of my thought process behind this. And I know somebody in this group chat's going to be a bit pissed off. I'll level with you. So I've gone through and worked out who I'd have as my first, second, and third choice at every position here. And I noticed that there's quite a big drop-off in two areas of the pitch. For me, you can pretty much cover it in most areas, apart from right wing and left wing. So I picked Kitely first because I think after that, who are you going to play there? Again, same as left wing, you've got two choices. You either had Matt Jarvis, who I think would have been a great shout, or
don't do it.
You have the flying winger that is Mark Kennedy, guys.
Son of a gun.
That was actually well, Rich.
Yeah.
That was my next
What
pick.
a player. What a wand of a left foot.
He once actually signed a trainer of mine. I did like one of those Wolves camps. And he came, like, you know, when they sort of drag a player down for half an hour, had nothing else he could sign. So he signed my lotto trainer.
Blimey. And that lotto trainer's now where, Rich?
I'd love to say I kept it. It's like frozen in carbonite, but I'm pretty sure.
Landfill.
I'm pretty sure it wasn't even done with a Sharpie. It faded away very quickly.
You press continue, Rich.
Yep, it's back onto Jordan.
Right, okay, so Mark Kennedy was actually my next pick, so that's slightly annoying. But there's someone I've always rated as a Wolves player. in that era, and I'm going to take him because there is a drop off out wide, and I believe that it's probably going to. I don't know what other people's opinions are on this player. I always liked him, and yeah, it might be a bit early, but I'm going for it anyway. So I just need to find him with my pick, and I can't find him anywhere. Where's he gone? Oh no, there he is. I've got him now. So my pick is Sean Newton.
Yeah. It's not who I was expecting you to say.
I always liked Sean Newton.
Yeah, very
I'm not
underrated.
necessarily sure why. Like, he had a good delivery on him, and he had a very unique running style with the ball. He used to slow down a bit. He wasn't as quick or electric as a Jarvis or a Kitely at the prime, but I did like Sean Newton, so he's going to go on my team. So I've got someone to put a ball in the box.
And to be fair to him, I know sort of we're very much concentrating on their Wolves career, but he had a half decent career after Wolves as well. He got promoted with West Ham. And I think we got like a big bonus from it. So, and I think he went off and played with Leicester as well. So he played for a couple of good clubs after leaving Wolves, which you can't say about, you know, all the players on our lists.
Yeah, no, I thought he was a good player, and I'm sure last time I read anything about Sean Newton, he was in trouble with the law, but
yeah,
about that.
There's a couple of hazy things off the field. We won't talk about.
I think there's another left winger that got done for some fraud as well.
I tell you what, he was third on my list for left wingers behind Kennedy Jarvis, and I just know one of you two's probably going to have to pick him.
Yeah, if I can avoid it, I'm going to avoid it. I think continue down on. Is that on you now, Dan? Yeah,
it is 2 picks in a row now, and I've got them nailed on. First pick is an absolute midfield powerhouse that I think, regardless of what division he played for us, I think he probably underachieved for Wolves before he left, but currently still with the club. Say George Olafinjana.
Great pick, Dan.
Patrick Vieira of the Championship.
Again, he injured his back really early on at Wolves, didn't he? And it just held him back that little bit. But
he was massively unlucky that he never got to play with better players in a Wolves shirt.
Yeah, 1,000%. And, you know, that season he had with McCarthy, and you know, we didn't quite make the playoffs or get promoted, I think it was, and you know, almost triggered a clause in his contract to, you know, get a transfer request in. I don't blame him. Got a lot of love for the guy. Had him on my back when I was at university as well, because we both look similar. You know, just great, just a proper good, strong physical player, which you need in the Championship.
Now my second pick, I've gone with a player who I'm still, depending on how I finish my formation, can play a variety of positions. But this lad absolutely got pace to burn, was remembered for being awful when he first joined, but after Christmas, he turned into the Senegalese R9. He's Henry Camara. What an absolute beast of a forward once he kicked into form. I don't care about how he left the club. I'm here to win this draft. And he's the man who's going to score the goals that win me this draft.
Yeah, we're talking about how they played at Wolves, not how they ended their time and things like that. So, you know what? I think I had to look at him earlier. He was relatively high up on my list as well when you take the sentiment out. You know, it's... yeah, not annoyed by that at all.
I mean, I'm still annoyed that he missed those chances away at Man United, but that second half of the season, him and Carl Court were an absolute... If Carl Court would have started the season with us, we'd have stayed up that season. You could have Carl Court, lads. I can't afford his wages.
Again, he hasn't made... interestingly, I feel like I'm giving the game away here. He hasn't made it onto my depth chart.
I had Carl Court on one of the back of the tops. You know, when he scored the hat-trick against QPR at home in the Championship, the club shop were giving away Court 27 free on the back of your shirts, and I went and bought a home kit because it was free. I had it on. So I did have a Carl Court 27 for a little bit of time. So there's a bit of trouble here because there's probably someone that I probably should pick, but no, I don't want to do it. I'm going to stick with my guns, So there's a player I thought was criminally underrated at Wolves. I've had arguments about this on Twitter, on the podcast, around, and especially again with Gully, again, the guy who wants John Fleck. So again, I'm definitely right here. I believe this bloke was better than Kevin McDonald, and he gets a bit of slander. I think he was criminally underrated and a big part of our promotion team. I'm going to pick to play alongside Paul Ince, dictate the game, David Jones.
Yeah. I think
Listeners of the last alternative, the last draft will know that you picked Dave Jones over Kevin McDonald, and it caused quite a lot of uproar. I'm still in the Kevin McDonald camp, where I think he was just a different level of gravity. David Jones is massively underrated, but I think he was so left-footed that.
What a left foot! Hey, Mark Kennedy was so left-footed, mate.
Yeah, but there was levels. Mark Kennedy was like Bob Ross with a left foot.
I was going to say, I think he was underrated, and I can see the argument, and I think it's a really interesting one between those two players. I mean, Macca ain't going to be in this one, but I think he was such a cultured player. But there's another player who's actually on my list who he is on my board, but he's very low down. But there's a very similar player for me on our list to him, but I'm not going to mention him until later, just as a bit of a tease, So it's my pick now again. Oh, wonderful. Right. Again, I'm actually going to keep up a bit of a theme. I need to probably pick a couple more Dave Jones players. I think I've got 2 McCarthy and 1 Dave Jones, but I'm actually going to go for another McCarthy player. And again, one who I think just ooze quality on the ball, wonderful player, solely left-footed. It is Nenaj Milias. Big player. He knew what he was doing on the ball. Absolute peg opening left foot. Even the dog agrees with me. Show me the money.
Everyone remembers like Jamie O'Hara's class goal that he scored against the Albion. It was all about Milias's assist, really. O'Hara had to do was get it on target, didn't he?
Exactly. I think I tried to pick. I think I might have picked him in the 2010 draft as well. I think he was one of those players who just he makes you enjoy watching football when he's on form. And, he's that sort of player who could unpick, could score a worldie. It's my sort of player. Didn't really do much movement, outside the middle of the centre circle. Probably smoked a pack a day even. I'll pass it over to for Goodman Andy now.
No, I'm really pleased that this man is left on the board. I thought he'd have gone earlier. When Jordan was talking about somebody who was underrated, this man for me was underrated. And his career was kind of curtailed, unfortunately, due to several injuries that never got to see him grace the Premier League like deserved. So far, I've gone with quite an attack-minded draft, so I'm not going to change that yet. And I'm going to go with Georgian Dar.
Yeah.
Oh, you joking me?
He was in my not premium, but I wanted him.
I was going to say
he was massively underrated.
Voice now.
Yeah, I always remember that
Kamara because he had like Senegalese armbands and orange boots.
Yeah, well, I was going to take Kamara before Ndar, but obviously because you took him, it left me with no choice. Now, I think I need a bit of defensive steel. My first pick was obviously going to be Lescott because he was the man when it comes to defence. So I'm going to have to look elsewhere. Okay, I think I know where I'm going to go. So back to the Mick McCarthy era for this one. Actually, no, I'm not. I'm going to go to the Dave Jones era for a defender who is quite loved because everyone loves a player who puts on a headband. And it's Ludo Polle. That image of him.
About Eric Young then.
I know, yeah. Just that image of him with the bloody rag tied around his head, leading the Wolves into battle. Yeah, I love Ludo Polle. He was a quality player.
I respect that. The fact that you've chose Ludovic Polle. That's the sort of attitude we should have had tonight. Players who score against the Albion, not play for the Albion.
You've got to get over it. He went there for 6 months.
Nah, it's 6 months too long.
It was essentially just for a paycheck, wasn't it, to be fair? But I don't know. We'll see. Right then, it's up to me. So, I mean,
You wouldn't let your missus wear an Albion top to bed for 6 months, would you?
Well, my missus is an Albion fan. There you go.
Oh, get rid of it. That's war, right? What's doing wrong with the world? Sorry, Rich, you carry on.
No, it's okay.
It's 2021. Dan, get up with it. Get with the time.
So I need to do a slight bit of balancing now. So I definitely need to pick a Dave Jones player. You know what? I'm going to go midfield. I need to sort of do some work in defence sooner rather than later, but I am going to get another midfielder just because I think, again, Sanu had an abundance of quality. I don't think the system never really fitted him for me a lot of the time, but he was a brilliant player. And also, we've mentioned Jordan when you were a mascot. So I had a run-in with this guy who stamped on my boot in the tunnel because he was bouncing the ball up and down. And I decided to catch it on the half volley away from him because it was annoying me. So with that, I have picked, he's got no hair and we don't care. It's Alex Ray to partner Nenaj Miliash in centre midfield. Alex Ray will bring the energy and a bit of aggression alongside Miliash with the range, but hopefully Ray can kind of get a bit forward as well for me.
Right, let's go.
That Reading goal from Alex Ray will live in memory forever, won't it?
Yeah.
Mm.
Alex Ray, the substitute.
This is just, again, like he could do a bit of everything. He was just so dynamic, and like it's quite hard to define what a dynamic footballer is, but he was one.
I've said one of the things that's annoyed me most during that decade was the fact that Alex Ray never got brought on in the playoff final that Adam Proudlock did.
Yeah.
He deserved that chance on that stage, didn't he, Ray?
He did. Massively.
Right, so last time I went for a bit of a fancy formation. I think to stick with the times, you've got to play 4-4-2. It just screams to play 4-4-2. So, right, I'm going to go for a striker who, again, was a massive player within that Mick McCarthy era, especially that promotion team. He was almost like the Mick McCarthy version of Leo Bonatini. But I'm going to pick Big Chris Iwelumo.
Interesting pick. Very interesting pick.
It might be a bit early, but I need a striker.
Yeah, he's in my fourth draft team, but I did love Iwelumo, and that season in the Championship, he was exceptional. Him and Ebanks Blake together was shit hot.
Yeah, but Ebanks Blake is gone, so I need to partner him with someone else, which we'll see what happens when it comes back around.
Chris Iwelumo. That hat-trick and sending off at Preston.
Yeah. We spoke about it on the last pod, or one of the last pods, where we spoke about his Scotland miss. Was that the last pod? Was it against Liverpool? It got brought up.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That sort of ruined him a little bit when he healed it against Scotland. I know he come back and scored 2 for us, but the next game, but he just seemed to give him demons for the rest of his career. But yeah, you know what? We signed him from Colchester, and I thought, what on earth are we doing? And he was brilliant, wasn't he? So, and he's a nice man. He's on with Mikey Burrows and Tomo, isn't he? So he's a good bloke. Long live the Iwelumo.
This first pick of my 2, I've maybe made a bit of trouble for myself. I'm going to have to switch Dennis Irwin to left back because he's that good. And my next pick is at right back, and it's going to be Foley. Absolutely reliable. Another Dennis Irwin type player. You just can't go wrong with. if I'm going to win this draft, it's because of players like him. Reliable, assured, gets the job done. The last Wolves
every
captain
week,
to
7
be
out of 10.
Liverpool.
Hmm.
Just reliable.
Foley.
The only thing
I love
Kevin
Foley.
Foley had, I wouldn't say poor in his game, was he didn't score enough. That was the only thing. But you could play him in midfield, you could play him right back, left back. Just an absolute.
No. I was going to
Great
say that.
player to have.
I think McCarthy ruined him a little bit. I remember going to Bolton away on New Year's Eve, I think it was, away at the Reebok. And he played Carl Emery and Kevin Foley central midfield. And it broke me. But still, the last Wolves captain to win at Anfield as well.
Right, so my last pick is a midfielder from the Mick McCarthy era, a player that I sort of like to mould upon myself. Box to box, number 10, eye for goal. It's Colin Cameron. Now, let me just replicate that picture. What a player, Colin Cameron. Massively underrated again.
Yeah, I think a lot of those sort of play the I guess sort of the playoff that promotion winning team from 03, a lot of them sort of left into a bit of a cloud and probably didn't get as much as a send off as they arguably deserved. I think so. Like your players like Cameron, just it seemed to fade away when he had a bit of cult status here. But one of them, isn't it? I think it's back over to Jordan, isn't it?
Yeah,
Correct.
So I might leave the strikers alone because there's a fair few on there. And I think I've probably got a little bit of time for the one I want off that list. So let's look at defence and looking through here now. I mean, there's a few on here that, you know what, like, I love Isaac Okoronkwo, but he only played for 6 games, didn't he?
Yeah.
I've got the
He's
shirt.
a player that I definitely did look at, but if you're going to take this draft seriously, you can't be having
pick
him.
No, I love him. I've got the shirt as well, hanging up downstairs. I can't do it. So I'm going to go for a right back who I thought would have been the first choice right back, to be honest with you. The Australian nut job that is Kevin Muscat. And if you want to win a draft, especially with this sort of team and the players we're picking, you need warriors. And I'm just telling you now, I've got Kevin Muscat and Paul Ince, so I'm not losing any street fight.
I think the only reason you wouldn't go for Muscat though, like in the real world, is he's just too unreliable. As great a player as he was, he's always got that Grimsby moment in Minani. That's the problem.
Yeah.
You know what though? I always feel like with Muscat, like I think that every manager probably had him thought like there was that girl that could tame him. You know what I mean? Oh, we'll sort him out. But no, he still had that nasty streak in him, didn't he? So no, you know what? I'm playing 4-4-2, Mike Bassett football, and he's my wacko. So there you go.
Great choice.
Okay, so it's back to me, isn't it? So I'm keen to make sure I get my mix of my Dave Jones players more than anything else. I'm sort of anxious about not quite getting it wrong, but making sure I've got enough to be fair. We don't quite leave it. So I'm going to go for a left back. Again, I think for the first 5-6 years of the decade, I think he had some genuinely great moments for the club. Again, another promotion winning player. I'm going left back, and I'm going to go for Lee Naylor.
So you didn't like Lee Naylor, Andy?
It is, yeah. Yeah.
Well,
He's not on any of
Andy?
my lists. I never really rated him. I always thought he was a very half-soaked player. He was always easily beaten. And I never really forgave him for that Middlesbrough fuck-up when he handed the ball back to him and they scored a quick free kick because he was massively out of position. He had a good shot on him, and that was pretty much it. And that, for me, isn't enough to be a decent left-back.
Did you mention that he had an absolute weapon of a long throw as well?
I don't really remember that, to be honest.
He
it
used
was
to like
more of
give
a
the
paper
ball team, didn't
airplane. I like Lee Naylor,
Same. Well, I
but
picked
not.
him.
I ain't gonna like gush over him. He is what he is, but I felt like he was a good academy graduate compared to some of the dross that we've had over the years.
He went on to play for Celtic. You're right. It's not exactly, he got Champions League football at certain points, but I don't know. We can chat about this after we've kind of picked everywhere. For me, out of all the positions, left back seemed the lowest level in terms of quality wise. Like I don't, I've had Naylor in there chiefly because of his era, but I think across the board, none of them really stand out as the best left back. But I'm the first. Well, I was going to say I'm the first one to pick when we had Dennis Irwin as well. I had him down as a right back on my list, but happy to see him play at left back as well. So I can see again be interested to sort of see how high you rank Irwin as a left back in that period. But Andy, overview for your double pick.
I'm going for someone. I feel like I need a midfielder, someone to anchor the midfield. I'm going to go for someone who wasn't here for a long time, but was here for a good time. And that'll be Mr. Tom Huddleston. Yeah. No, he had a short loan spell for us, but I thought he was exceptional in the games that he played for us. And obviously he scored his first ever senior goal in a Wolves shirt against his former team, Derby County. He was a player, once he'd left the Wolves as well, I just loved to watch him play. He was a bit like Milias in that he didn't need to get around the pitch a lot because he had vision and range that very few others have. So big fan of Mr. Huddleston. So he's going to be dropping into my midfield. So that's Huddleston.
Yeah, I thought he was great on loan for us. I think he only played was here for 2 months. Or 3 short, but
it wasn't.
He was class. He was a Rolls Royce for me.
Yeah, you could tell he was a class act. He was going to go on to be a decent player. But in a Wolves draft, how many sort of appearances can you justify that being a good decision? I'll leave that to you guys.
I mean, he's playing this guy. He just keeps trying to flip it back. Oh.
I was going to say, Andy does currently have a midfield duo of Dave Edwards and Tom Huddleston.
Yep. And when you get the double pick, it's so difficult because you're concentrating on getting the one, but really you need to think about both of them together. The player, I think, fuck it. It's a bit early to go. Yeah, it's a bit early to go for one, but I think he's the most exceptional goalkeeper we've seen in a Wolves shirt up until recent days, and that's Matt Murray.
Yeah.
He probably should have gone early, shouldn't he, to be honest?
Well, again, I think, again, with goalkeepers, I think we found doing this last time out, I think I picked Patricio very early and then actually realised how much will that play? But Matt Murray is arguably for that period. I mean, interestingly, he fell into the McCarthy era. He played one more game under McCarthy in what was essentially one season under McCarthy than he had done for the last 5 seasons combined. One more game. Yeah, crazy. Again, quality player, genuinely, but for those, even if it was in the previous period, he could arguably one of the best players of that decade, hands down for me.
Thanks again to the people who are tuning in instead of watching Portugal play tonight. Maybe a rookie mistake by us choosing that tonight, but you live and learn.
Yeah, we do. Right. So, as I'm apparently feel like I'm fixated on getting this balance right, I'm on. We're just over halfway through the draft now, I believe. I think Andy would have picked 7. The rest of us have picked 6. So I'm on 3 from each era by the looks of it. Mm-hmm. So I've got a little bit of balance in mind. So I'm gonna go for another. I feel like you got a couple more stronger players in the McCarthy era, just ever so slightly. So I'm going to go for a player who, again, joined us on loan and the way Dan lined it up, I think, for Kenny Miller, a lot of resemblance to this man. Joined on loan, scored a bag full of goals, 21 in 29 games, I think it was. Guys,
That corner flag celebration.
I've gone Dino Sturridge.
Oh, that's all I wanted.
Drink it in.
What a player.
Again, you know, did he hit his true heights at Wolves? Maybe not, but you know, for that period, he was just absolute goals galore. And I think sticking him up front with someone like Kevin Doyle, having Doyle do your doggies for you, while he's just, you know, he's just going to be in that 6-yard box and just be an absolute assassin for me.
Yeah, you know what? He was class act, wasn't he? He was a class act.
That first season when he came online, he was just unreal. Him and Nathan Blake up front. And then second season, we had Kenny Miller, Dean Sturridge, Nathan Blake, and Adam Proudlock. That's a serious strike force for the championship days.
It's an Avengers lineup strike force, isn't it?
Massively.
Let's be honest. Right, Jordan, where you going, mate?
I almost feel like I need to finish my defence off, to be fair. And you are right, we left back. There's only one on there that makes sense. And I don't think he was actually that good of a player. I do think I'm going to pick him because I think the fans loved him more than what his footballing ability. I just need to find him. George Elokobi is my pick. The beast. What a geezer.
I would consider him as a last-ditch centre-back earlier on in the day, just because I wanted him in the team. Like, you want these players in your dressing room.
Yeah.
I love George Elokobi. Like you say, he wasn't the most finessed players, but he gave everything, and that's what you want in a player, isn't it?
Yeah, 100%. And I think, you know what, he loves the club. Even now, you can tell how much he loves the club. And he wasn't a bad player at all. Like, the admiration was because he was relatable, I think, for the fans and stuff. And that goal he scored against Man United at home, I remember. I always remember him fracturing that guy's skull for Plymouth. Because I was sat in the Billy Wright when I originally had my season ticket with one of my mates from school. We were about 15, 16. And just remember the sound. And it was just like...
Yeah.
And that sound, when you saw what happened to Raul at Arsenal, I thought just that sound come back. I was like, that's just, jarring. But he was a strong old boy, wasn't he, George?
First of my two picks, I'm venturing into the centre-back criteria of the draft. And there isn't a lot left, lads, just FYI. And this guy, absolute legend at the club, scored against the Albion, and that's big points for me. He used to be shy. It's Jody Craddock.
Yeah.
Captain, leader, legend.
Yeah. Solid player. Again, if you look at his time in the McCarthy era more than the Dave Jones era, which is what we're focusing on, he was just phenomenal, and he was a genuinely nice guy as well, who, you know, you could see his quiet leadership sort of drove that team forward a lot of the time alongside some of those bigger characters in the dressing room.
My next pick, I'm either leaning to a 4-4-2 or a 4-5-1 with wingers. And this guy reinvented Cruyff turn, and it's Seol Ki-hyun. I'm all about getting shirt sales with this team, and that's another big win for me tonight.
I was going to say, you've got a couple of World Cup players in there with Seol Ki-hyun, Henri Kamara, Say George. I think might have played at one as well.
Yeah, she's got Sammy Algeria to complete the set.
Yeah.
Being the ISS Pro Wonder Boys, my team's going to be called.
Whereabouts are you playing him?
I've not decided yet. I said I'm either playing 4-4-2 or 4-5-1 with wingers, so I could either play Henry Kamara and Seol as wingers to Kenny Miller, or I can play Kamara and Miller up front in a 2 and Seol on the right wing.
Yeah, I had him down on my list, but I couldn't quite place him in a position, which kind of strikes as a proper Glenn Hoddle thing. But
either side wing, both-footed, cultured.
Right, so
He's Jordan.
there's so many centre halves there. I need a centre half. I'm going to leave that. Right, let's have a look at midfielders. So, Sol was my next pick, to be honest with you, which is really annoying because I genuinely don't think there's any other wingers. God,
I had 3. I was going to say I won't give the game away. I had two left wingers in there you could have who haven't been taken, who I think you could arguably have, and Son who could play on the right wing as well. But have you already got Newton? Am I right in thinking?
I did get Newton. Yeah. Oh, this is horrible. If I'm looking at the wingers.
Yeah, you can see my logic about making sure.
Yeah, I should have gone earlier. I should have gone earlier with this because it is very slim pickings. Right. Let me just go back through. You know what? I could probably leave this and get away with it for a bit later on because I've got my eye on someone, but I'm not ready to take him. So I am going to go with a centre half to complete my back four. And the one I really want, I can't justify picking him in a Wolves draft, and that was Mikael Bischoff because I thought he was class, but he was just glass by the time he come to us. So, again,
have you gone Mikael Bischoff?
No, I was saying I would love to. I
was going to say, I don't think I've even put a picture in for him.
Oh, haven't you? I did love him. So
I was going to say I've got him on my board, but he is at the bottom of my essentially 8 picks. So I don't know why I don't know why I'm giving away my numbers here.
No, it's fair enough.
I'm just going to stay quiet.
So this guy, I'm probably picking him more on the song than his Wolves career, and I'm also probably thinking of his career before Wolves. I know that doesn't count, but we all dream of a team of Gary Breens, and I do as well. So I'm picking him. So Gary Breen is my next pick.
I think that is shocking.
It's a solid choice.
I think that's shocking.
He makes Jody Craddock look like Virgil van Dijk.
I'm just thinking of him getting that World Cup best 11 in 2002.
You can't knock Gary Breen for what he did at Wolves, but his legs had pretty much gone by the time he come to Wolves, hadn't they?
The problem is now I'm going to ruin my pick by saying my memory of Gary Breen was that playoff semi-final, and Diamante Mora was just jogging. You know, when we went through 1-on-1, he was literally just walking, and Gary Breen could get anywhere near him before he put it in to go. That was a 3-2 goal.
I still remember him getting sent off. I think it was against Cardiff when he was literally pointing and just wasn't looking. He just caught someone on the fly, paying no attention to his surroundings. The end of the game was rescinded. I don't think that's a great choice, chiefly because I think there's a couple of other McCarthy players who I reckon you could go for, who I'm actually going to go for one myself, tie up at centre-back. You could happily argue, I think I picked him in my other draft as well, that he played better for Wolves in the next decade, but it's easy to forget that this guy was actually in the Championship Team of the Year when we got promoted, and that is Richard Stearman.
Steers.
At centre-half as well. He came young in that season as well, but he played most games that season, and it's really easy to forget he was a raw defender, and he grew and he matured. Again, friend of the Fancast, but again, bit of a Rolls Royce, slightly raw, but I think it's still a great player. Even in that Championship season and in the Premier League as well for us, he was a proper servant.
Scored on the last day of the season against Rotherham when we won the title.
Yeah.
With one of the slowest headers in history.
And also loved a Cruyff turn.
He did, yeah.
Yeah.
All 4 Cruyff turns.
So I think, is it back now to Andy with a double pick?
It is, yes. Right, now I've got 4 places to fill, and there are 4 players that I actually want. So I need to figure out which one's likely to still be here in the next go. Okay. I think I know what I'm going to do. So we're going to go into defence. And it's a player who I always thought was massively underrated for Wolves. He got a lot of shit. He wasn't the quickest of players, but I always felt that he read the game quite well. And that's Christophe Berra, the big French Scotchman.
I like Berra as well.
Great pick,
Yeah.
Andy.
Yeah.
Anything 6 foot or above, he won everything. He just wasn't
Yeah.
that good on the ground for me.
Just the Scottish killer.
Yeah, but I like Kilman as well, so it's all right.
Who had better distribution, Dan, Berra or Kilman? That's a question.
I'd say Kilman just.
I don't think you really see Kilman distribute. He just passes it, doesn't he? He does a lot. I don't think I've ever seen him actually hoof a ball, which probably stands quite a testament to him, to be fair.
They're always 2-yard passes, really, aren't they? So for my second pick, I am going to stay in the Mick McCarthy era, and I'm also going to stay in Scotland and take Jackie Mack, a proper Rolls Royce of a player. He was like, and I think part of it is obviously his career up until Wolves as well, obviously plays into it. He was just an exceptional footballer. And because he's so versatile, I'm still undecided on whether or not I'm going to put him in midfield or defence, but he's going to be my pick anyway. So that's my Mick McCarthy era team done. So just on to Dave Jones for me.
Good calls, Andy. I think those are all sort of both solid choices. So I still need a goalkeeper, a right back, and a centre half. I am going to lock down a right back as my next pick. I say this with a name in mind. I'm just going to double check that he still kind of exists. We've got still quite a few defenders on the board, ranging from Gunnar Haller, Joachim Borkland. I'm not going to pick those guys. Do I go Mark Clyde or Mark Little? No, I'm not. I'm going to go for someone who, again, I think he was a quality player. Lot of personality about him. Could get up and down the wing like nothing else. Scored a fantastic goal against West Ham. I am locking down Ronald Zubar.
It's a nice little pick.
Yeah. And so that leaves me 5 McCarthy players, I think. 5 McCarthy players for Dave Jones. So I can only have one more McCarthy in my last 3 picks. Are you guys all keeping track of yours? Are you still kind of in the parameters?
Yeah, I'm 4 and 4 at the minute.
Yeah,
So
I'm 6 and 3.
All 6 and 3. So who have you maxed out on, Andy?
Mick McCarthy's gone, so I'm looking at Dave Jones's and Glenn Hoddle's era only now.
Okay.
Which is fine because they've actually got the 2 players that I want. So that does work out.
I reckon I can't see what we can't see is what other I've kind of crossed off players, but I've not put a note about who you've got. I've not prepared enough mind games to try and screw you over. I wish I'd done that now. It's a bit.
Do I take the striker or do I take the winger? That is the question.
It just seems that Gully's posted in our chat on this that Stephen peaked in his first season. I don't necessarily think that's true. I think he was probably better for Wolves that League One Championship campaign under Kenny Jackett, personally.
Yeah,
Gully.
Yeah, that was the highlight of his career for us, I think. In the aughts, his best season was the Championship, but his career did have highlights after that, I think.
Yeah.
So
George, how are you looking?
Looking quite light, up front. That's the problem. It's there's a lot of names there, and none of them will get you over 10 goals a season, no matter what league you're in.
Treat yourself to Leon Clark.
I've seen him in O'Shawn, I can't do it. Right. So I'm going to pick someone who I thought was, again, maybe a bit of an underrated player. It wouldn't necessarily be my first choice, but I think he'd work quite well in this system. And he used to get a lot of shit, really, for his finishing, but I thought he did a lot more than that. And possibly we could have used him a bit more in the Premier League, I thought, when we first went up. Got that goal to give us our first away win in the Premier League at Wigan. I'm going with Andy Keogh.
Good choice.
Nice. Yeah.
Freddie.
I think now we're down to say sort of I've got 2 players left to go. Dan will have 3 players. Well, we'll have 1 in a second. We are starting to scratch quite deep. I know we've only had 1 goalkeeper go so far, so I think it's going to get a little tense with these last few positions. I think I can see George got what is definitely not an anxious pose going on.
Yeah, I've got a player in mind. I'll be gutted if he goes. So I probably should have took him a bit earlier, but we'll see. I'll be happy if Dan doesn't pick him in the next 2. Put it like that.
My first pick of the 2, I didn't realise Matt Murray had already gone. I'm very gutted at that. But I feel like there isn't a lot of decent keepers in that criteria. So I'm having probably the best all-round goalkeeper I've seen in a Wolves shirt, and that's Wayne Hennessy.
Yeah, I picked him in my 2010-2020 draft as well.
Distribution, coming off his line, shot stopping. He was a very talented goalkeeper that severed his Wolves relationship, leaving the way he did. My second pick, I've only got 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm going to go for centre midfielder, and that is Adlan Guediora.
Yeah. Oh, I had him on a couple of mine because I thought he's a cracking player to sort of, you could drop him in a couple of different positions. And I know you mentioned earlier, Dan, about not quite sure about how you're going to line these players up. And I think he is someone who had that bit of quality about him, showed it at Wolves, showed it afterwards. Again, loved a spectacular goal. Said you could pick him anywhere, couldn't you? I had him down as a potential right winger, potential attacking midfielder, come striker if my formation changed. I think a proper utility player, especially as we get him further down this list and you try and make it all work.
A point on Hennessy. I'm surprised he was the second keeper to go. Like, I don't think he was a bad keeper, but I don't know. I didn't think he was the best all-round keeper, as Stan said. I think there's at least one other keeper I think he's probably better than him.
I had him as my third choice, but only because I only had Murray first, so I've almost had it alternate in terms of the eras as well. So, but as I said, like goalkeepers, it's Murray I think was a standout, but I think you've got 2/3 others who I think are solid bets in there. But hopefully Jordan's not going to take one of them.
3, 4. Right, so I said I was going to play 4-4-2, and I think there's probably other players on this board where you could probably make an argument that they probably had better careers elsewhere, or even in the following decade. So, like someone I always liked, and he come to Wolves and he wasn't very good, and I can't never pick him. I'm not even justifying it. It was Carlos Edwards. I always liked Carlos Edwards, but he's not in a Wolves shirt. So
he was better than Pennant, though. To be fair.
I think they were on a par. I thought Carlos Edwards was dreadful. It's the same when we signed Lafondra. I thought Lafondra would be the boy because of on FM. He broke my heart. Basically, I've never been so let down in all my life. Genuinely, really pissed me off.
I think when we signed Holt and Lafondra, we had a Phobie and Dicko up front starting, didn't we? At that point, so I compared them. I said for a Phobie and Dicko to. Holt and Lafondra was essentially our York and Andy Cole to Sheringham and Charles Carr coming off the bench. That did not age well at all. I'll see if I can find that tweet from the Fancast.
Right, so I'm going for a left-sided midfielder, and he wasn't blessed with pace, but I really like this guy. Not even sure why, really. I think it was, again, my ball boy days. Under Hoddle, where he used to come off the bench and always put a penalty away. So I'm going to go for Kevin Cooper.
Yes, he was on mine. When I was talking earlier about a play similar to Dave Jones, it was him I was thinking of. Just a sort of quite a reserved player in terms of, he wasn't sort of big and imposing, but a really cultured player, could take a set piece and great delivery on him.
Yeah, so I'm just thinking this late in the draft, I've got to take him.
No,
Yeah.
I think he's a good one to wrap up. I think that makes it my turn again, doesn't it? So
Sorry, I've got to press continue. There you go, mate.
that's all right. So I'm in a bit of a conundrum because I can have essentially either 2 Dave Jones players or one of each, and only a goalkeeper. Of which, if we're going to be honest, there's 4 good goalkeepers over the decade for us. Actually 5, but he didn't really play all that much in terms of Carl Hakimi. So he wasn't on mine. And you got Marcus Hanneman. Oh, this is trickier than I thought. Let's have a quick look. You know what? I'm going to hold off because I know there's 2 goalkeepers that I might go for. So I'm going to go for a defender. This could either make or break my team because I've got 2 choices and they are polar opposites in terms of players. And I feel like I'm just going to say it out loud because there's sort of few left. So for me, I can either pick Paul Butler, blood, guts and thunder, leader at centre half alongside Stearman to sort of guide him through. Or do I go for Michael Mancienne, who for that period he was at Wolves was such a good player? I'm torn. Truly am. I feel like if I'm going to go for their time at Wolves, I think a player who sort of I think made such a strong impression for me. I'm going to go for Michael Mancienne. This could make or break my team because it leaves me a little bit exposed in the middle of the park with, I guess, a Stearman Mancienne back pairing at the back with Alex Ray and Neres Milias in front. But again, I also think he had that sort of that Rolls Royce quality. We talked about Lescott having it. I might live and die by that decision. But again, I think I thought he was a quality player in the Championship and he showed he could do it in the Premier League as well for us. It's a real shame his career didn't properly kick on, probably because, as Mouldy said, he was a bit too lightweight. So I'll be interested to sort of see who picks up what I think will be Paul Butler if anyone's got him left on, if anyone needs a centre half left.
I'm just going to make a reference to Steve Griffiths. I didn't see Paul Butler on the board and I forgot he was there. And how did Green?
And in regards to Mouldy 7890, I agree. Mancienne was too lightweight.
Yeah,
Steve, it's live TV. It's our first gig. I'm really sorry.
I was going to say I feel like I've gone too lightweight, but if I'd have gone Paul Butler, I feel like we could have criticised the back line of someone who was a bit slow and Stearman who could be a bit rash. So hopefully those 2 sort of even it out. But Gully seems to just about have my back on this one. And, when Gully, I mean, apart from with Dan, when Gully backs you up on a footballing opinion, I do sort of feel like a bit bigger.
Here we go. Go on, Dan, finish him.
I'm just going to get a call with Brad in any second.
Welcome to the latest episode of Bratcast. Have you still got to go, Andy?
Yeah, it's my go now.
You've got your last 2?
I've got my last 2 picks, and I can either go and make this a 4-4-2 or I can do a 3-5-2. I've got quite a few options here, so I'm not quite sure what to do. But I think I need to finish off the defence first before I think of it. I've got Berra and Polle, so I don't think I can go for Paul Butler because I think I could beat that in a foot race, to be perfectly honest. There's not masses of pace left apart from Mo Kamara. And sorry, Stu, but I'm not picking Mo fucking Kamara. I'm going to go with the most beautiful manager we've ever had, and that is Mr. Rob Edwards. Yeah, I thought he was a decent player for us. Not much more to say. We're at the arse end of it all now. He's the best of a very bad bunch, but I thought he was a good player in his day for us. So I don't know whether to go for an extra man in midfield or just go balls to the wall and go all-out attack.
You either need a wing. Look at it. You either need a winger, or you can have a very very forward-looking, like 4-2-4, I think, aren't you? Stick Dave Edwards on wing. You grand.
Yeah, that's it. Put him left wing because that went down really well.
Do you remember we played a game at right back?
Yes, against Sheffield United, wasn't it?
Yeah.
I think we won that game, if I remember correctly, as well. Right, so that's Edwards. Yeah, okay. It's someone who has already been mentioned and was said, I think it was Dan who said it, that if we'd had him from the start of our Premier League campaign, we would have survived that season. And I'm going to go with Carl Court, and we are going to attack the fuck out of everybody else. So that's my team.
Okay.
I can remember him making his debut in the Premier League for us. It was away at Anfield, I'm sure it was, and we lost in the 93rd minute. And Sammy Ipia scored in front of the Cop End. And I only remember it because I've mentioned him before. My dad's a Liverpool fan, and we actually were in the Liverpool end for that game as well. And I remember Carl Court getting battered by Hippier and Honcho all game, and then Hippier breaking my heart.
That Andy's team is locked in. I just need a goalkeeper from the Dave Jones era. Shall I read them out to you? Would you have any interest in hearing them? Don't care. I'm going to say it anyway. So my choices are, and this is just in the order there on my screen, which is alphabetical by first name because that's the way I ordered them. You've got Andy Marshall, Jan Budds, Michael Oakes, Big Mickey Stow, Paul Jones, and Stefan Posma. Now, I am out of those. Obviously, Stow was a legend through the 90s. How much did he show in the noughties? Not quite.
Played 15 minutes.
Yeah. So
I research on him.
Then I'm gonna have to go for Michael Oakes. Again, I think a loyal servant. I remember when when he left, he went to Cardiff, and they had Oakes in goal. We had Hennessy, obviously, as a Welsh boy. At the end of the game, their fans were clapping Hennessy because I think he just got called up for the national team. Wolves fans applauded Oakes. I think, again, loyal servant, left under a bit of a cloud in a way, but I think still has respect to a lot of people. So that is my team locked in. I think I'm pretty happy with that, to be honest.
I'm still waiting for a goal that's better than Hennessy. I'm sorry.
Oh no, I think he's a great goalie.
So who was second, and who was second if you had him third?
Oh, so I had Oakes second. I had Murray first, but I wanted to have a backup goalkeeper who was the other era. So it was sort of balanced out.
Right,
so that was sort of how I leveled it. On paper, I think Hennessy's better than Oakes, but
okay, I'm with you now. That's what I need to hear.
Yeah, I didn't. Don't worry, Dan. I did not think that Oakes was better than Hennessy. Interestingly, there's a goalkeeper I didn't have on my list because I had two McCarthy ones. So I'll be interested. I don't quite know how many picks, because Jordan, are you still needing a goalie?
Yeah. So there's only one pick for me. I was just going to say, though, before we get to it, about Michael Oakes, I thought it was a disgrace that we signed Paul Jones and dropped him in that Premier League season.
Yeah.
Because he was playing well, and then we dropped him and put bloody Paul fucking Jones in goal.
I mean,
anyway,
it was like watching a paving slab move, wasn't it, with Paul Jones?
Yeah, it was terrible. It was just terrible.
Moldy 789. Now you're massively correct. Michael Oakes did have a massive weapon as well.
Did he? Big slog.
I reckon he had to tape it round his leg. It was that big.
I was in the wrong industry.
It was rumoured that he was bigger than Dion Dublin's.
What, his jube or his cock?
Both.
Fair enough. Right, so there's only one keeper for me, and I've got a lovely story about the man as well, in which I bumped into him after we beat Tottenham away 1-0 when Kevin Doyle scored. I was going to blast off. He was in Strictly Liquor on the Pen Road, getting all the top shelf stuff for a party back at his on Shoal Lane. The man, the myth, the legend. He brought our booze. Fantastic bloke. Fantastic goatee. USA's finest. Marcus Hanneman.
Massive fan of Five Finger Death Punch as well.
Mr. USA himself. You know what, though? I thought he was a good goalie for us, and he was solid enough, I thought. I'm happy with that.
Yeah, we would have got relegated if we'd have stuck with Hennessy that season. Hennessy was terrible in the Premier League that first year. Hanneman coming in saved us.
He was good at Reading, wasn't he, Hanneman, to be fair?
Yeah, he was.
That's
Very much steadied the ship, didn't he, for us? And I think he almost played like a whole calendar year, didn't he? And then Hennessy came back for the second half of that second season.
Did he get injured in that second season? Am I right in thinking is that why he got replaced? I can't remember getting dropped for bad form, but he might have been because we were litter, weren't we, to be honest?
If you were to continue, Jordan, I'll have my last pick.
Sorry, my friend.
And I'll just clarify the criteria again. You have to have 6 players from the Mick McCarthy era.
From either. So you can only have a maximum of 6.
Okay.
So you can either have a maximum of 6 from one or the other. So if you've got, I think, how are you looking? You've got 1, 2, 3.
5 of each.
You've got 5 each, so you can pick either way. So looking at how you're left, do you need another defender, maybe?
I need a centre-back, and Virgil van Dijk's not in here. So the defender that I'm going to go with to reignite that awful Sunderland defence that got relegated with Mick McCarthy. It's the club captain of our playoff winning side, the Butler. And that is my team. And I'm going with a 4-2-3-1 formation, which you'll see later on.
So that is, I believe, the draft complete. So it sort of flicks through now. I guess, are there any players who haven't been picked who we thought would have been? I was going to say, should we run through our teams just sort of briefly, just in case? So, I mean, are
you able to do yours, Jordan, now? And then once you've done it, press continue, then it might skip to the next person's?
Yeah, so what do I need to do? Just press continue, yeah?
No, just go through your team, your key players, and then hopefully you'll press continue and we'll go on to someone else.
All right, cool. Yeah, so I've gone for a 4-4-2 because I think it was fitting with that era, not this 3-4-3 bollocks we see nowadays. Just kidding. So I've gone 4-4-2. So I've got Marcus Hanneman in goal, a back four of Kevin Muscat, Gary Breen, Jolien Lescott, and George Elokobi. And I've got a midfield four of Sean Newton, Paul Ince, David Jones, and Kevin Cooper, with my strikers being Iwelumo and Keogh. Sort of the key picks in there. Jolien Lescott, Rolls-Royce, standout defensive pick on there. I'll pick Paul Ince just to be that leader in that team. And then, like I said before, a few of the slightly underrated players for me within my Wolves lifetime have been Sean Newton and Dave Jones. Overall, I found it a bit more difficult than the 2010-2021, but I'm still relatively happy with that 4-4-2. And like I say, Muscat and Ince in a cubicle in Oceania are not losing any fights. So I'm happy with that team.
Seems fair to me. So mine was big in more ways than one. Oaks in goal for me. Fullbacks as Zubar and Lee Naylor, holding down the fort at centre back. I had Stearman and Mancien. 4 across the middle, same as Jordan. Played the formation of the decade 4-4-2. So I had Kitely on the right, Alex Ray and Nenaj Milijas in midfield, with Mark Kennedy bombing down the left wing, with Kevin Doyle and Dean Sturridge up front.
So I've gone for a very fluid team here. I could either go 4-4-2, 3-5-2, 4-3-3. I think my preferred formation would be a 3-5-2, and that would be with Matt Murray in goal, a back three from right to left of Rob Edwards, Ludo Parley, Christophe Berra, 2 holding midfielders in Huddleston and Jackie McNamara. And then I would have Jarvis on the right wing, Dave Edwards through the middle, and George and Dar playing as the left attacker. I would then have Sylvan Ebanks-Blake and Big Carl Court up top.
That formation is wild.
You got Jackie McNamara playing defensive mid?
Yep, which he did for Celtic. I'm going with like what I would have played. I would have played this team
As a
on
football manager.
on Football Manager, basically. Undar was a forward, left, and centre, so that's perfectly fine. So from on the left wing.
Whatever floats your boat, Andrew.
Yeah.
Right. Has it gone back to Rich?
Oh, it's gone
Luke
back to Rich
me.
now.
So, do you want to do yours quickly, Dan? If George
Like
press
to.
continue. Yeah, George, if you
It is
press
the winning
continue.
team.
I've got to press continue again, have I?
Yeah, just press
Yeah.
continue again. I think it'll just loop.
Cool. Waiting for Dan Hughes. There we go.
So,
Right,
Dan, what was
so-
your team then?
In goal, Wayne Hennessy. It's a 4-2-3-1 formation. You've got Dennis Irwin left back, Kevin Foley right back, a central defence pairing of Jody Craddock and Paul Butler. Deep lying midfielders, you've got Say George Oliphant-Joyner and Grediora box to box. The three behind Kenny Miller, who's up front on his own. You've got Colin Cameron, who's playing central, and then you've got Seol Keon and Henry Kamara, who will be rotating wingers like Iron Robin and Damien Duff back in the day. What an absolute team that is. Electric pace, solid at the back, Dennis Irwin captain. That's your winning team, folks. Good night.
I was going to say, it's interesting. So, when we did it, so I've got sort of two things before we wrap up then. So, for me and Jordan doing this last time, does it feel like the teams were a bit more even? So, like, I could happily make justification of my team being the best team, but going through, I've gone, well, actually, I guess there's a lot more consistency across this decade than the last one, do you reckon?
Yeah, I do. I think because there's not as many standout players, are there? And I know last time we limited it to 4 out of Nuno, but you had such a drop off, didn't you? And it got those first picks. Me picking 4th in that draft. Somehow I ended up with picking number 4 and 5 were Neves and Moutinho. So I'd already pretty much won the midfield battle there and then. So I think that sort of helped me win the fans pick last time. But it does feel like there's much of a muchness, and I don't think there's much in the teams, to be honest with you. I think it's quite level, and I quite like your midfield. To be fair, Rich, now you've said it back, I think it is a good championship winning midfield for me.
Yeah, I think a lot of the teams are sort of, as I say, really balanced. So what I did for this is, as I said, I wrote out essentially my 4 for each position in basically a 4-4-2/4-5-1. So like what you're kind of drifted. So there's a couple of players on mine who haven't been ticked. So I've been crossing off as we've gone along. Feel free to shout if there's anyone who you reckon we've missed. So I had Mike Stowler as a potential goalkeeper, but again, he didn't really play in the decade. Stephen Ward didn't go. I think that was a bit surprising.
I think Mouldy 7890 has said that. Did he get picked? And for me, I was going to pick him at left wing, but then, to be honest with you, Stephen Ward was his own enemy. When the fact of he started up front, he could have played anywhere, and he was a solid but unspectacular servant for Wolves for me. And that I couldn't really put him anywhere ahead of someone else.
The striker list was pretty strong, and he was never going to get the left back position in any of our teams. I don't think.
No. I wouldn't have him over Lee Naylor. I wouldn't have him over Dennis Irwin. I wouldn't have him over Ella Kobe, and I wouldn't have him over sort of McNamara. To be honest, I can see it. Supermo Camera, I had him down as a potential left back and left winger, but he was 4th choice. He was deep down the depths on that one for me. I'm sure Stu will be fuming. My 8th choice centre back would have been Mikhail Bishkov, which, as we've said, great player, but would break quite easily. The only centre midfielder I think hasn't been picked that I had, and I had him quite high up, to be fair, in terms of McCarthy ones, is Carl Henry. Yeah,
but he's such a twat on Twitter that I couldn't bring myself to get him, to be honest.
Yeah, fair.
Another midfielder for me, who I liked, and I couldn't justify picking him, was Joey Goodjohnson. I don't know what I'd like Joey Goodjohnson.
He was one who sort of rattled about for a bit, and I think because I went off the idea of, well, I needed basically an even number of era players. I thought, would I have him above Paul Ince, Alex Ray, Colin Cameron, and Kevin Cooper?
No, you wouldn't know. Just honourable mention, I think.
Yeah, I think
going back to Carl Emery, I mean, obviously, captain of the championship winning side, did well for us in the Premier League, but in a draft format, he's not really a player that you can sell to the viewers that he didn't score enough goals, did he? He's not attractive on the eye for this sort of format.
I think he got. No. I don't think he got picked last time either. Rich, did he? I'm sure he got left on the board for the 2010 one as well.
Yeah, Carl Emery really didn't. I think so. He wasn't quite enough of a standout defensive midfielder in the same way Paul Ince was, despite sort of similar molds. Who else did I have that got missed out? We did half mention him, but Michael McIndoe. For that,
I considered him because I thought he'd be a good player to have around the dressing room until they realise how much money he's taken off them.
Yeah. Till he asked them for 20 quid.
Yeah. And then sort of all my strikers, attacking players were sort of happily taken. So, I mean, from memory, was there anyone sort of I think we missed throughout that?
There's definitely a striker by the name of Stefan Meyerhofer that could have done a job for any of these teams tonight.
Yeah, we had. I was going to say we had another Stefan Iverson in there as well. We had Nathan Blake, which
I did think about him.
I think I sort of realised we sort of joked earlier about sort of that firepower when we had Sturridge, Miller, Lake in there, and actually you can't start ranking it, and he slipped further and further and further down, almost out of obscurity, and especially
he's probably like if you did like I don't know an England one, or he's almost like he was almost a Heskey mould when he complemented that. He did so much work for us, but would you necessarily pick him in this sort of format? I don't think you would. If you pick in a physical 11, probably he'd be up there, wouldn't he? I think, to be honest.
Yeah, I was going to say, out of curiosity, so we kind of did it a bit. We randomised in terms of first picks. So Andy got to sort of kick off the draft. Out of curiosity, did any of you have a particular plan in terms of who you were going to pick first, regardless of position? How much did it change? Because, as I said before, for me, the biggest drop off was in wingers for me. So to go from Kitely to then Newton to Solskjaer Young to Guardiola seemed a steep climb. Again, you had Kennedy and Jarvis, and then McIndoe and Mo Kamara. So I was dead set on just locking those two positions in nice and early. So they were my first two picks, sort of regardless. I thought I'd be able to get it work. So Jordan and Dan, who did you have sort of a particular plan to pick first, or was it sort of the same as Andy's?
Mine was Ebanks Blake. If I had to pick number one, my list was Ebanks Blake, Kitely, Lescott, Ince was like my four, and then obviously I think Ebanks Blake went first. Kitely went second, didn't he? I think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he did.
So then I was just torn between Ince and Lescott, and I had wrote down I'd go for Lescott, but something told me to go for Paul Ince, and I managed to get them both. So I'm quite happy that I got two of my four picks, I guess.
No, it sounds
Paul
good.
Ince was definitely my first pick because he's a winner, ain't he? You need players like that, and I think most games, whether it was in this era or today, most games are won in the middle of the field, and I think you have to have a player like him in your side. The strikers, I didn't really have a second pick because being fourth pick, I didn't really know where I was going to stand. I think he could have gone with any striker from the likes of Ebanks Blake, Kenny Miller, Kevin Doyle. They're all solid strikers for Wolves. Matt Murray would have been a nice pick, but goalkeepers aren't flashing this format. I'm happy with my team. I think we've all got decent areas and definitely got flaws. But overall, I've definitely got the best team.
Well, we will do a poll on them Twitters to find out from our followers who we think who's got the best. Big thanks for everyone who's joined us this evening on this live stream. We're sort of going to try and do a few more of these, not necessarily draft style ones, but a few more Instagram lives. I think it's a really fun format in terms of sort of promoting and sort of doing what we do. Make sure you keep up to date with all things Wolves Fancast. See on the bottom of the screen, we've got all of our social media handles going on. We're on Twitter at WWFC Fancast, Instagram Wolves_Fancast, Facebook is just Wolves Fancast as well. Make sure you like, share, and subscribe to the channel. As I mentioned at the start, we are doing a giveaway on our social media feed, so subscribe to the channel and retweet one of our latest tweets. If you scroll down, you'll be able to find it. I think it's also on Instagram as well. With a chance to win a Wolves home kitty. From there we go. It's been a long evening, guys. So it is goodbye from Dan.
Goodbye, everyone. Take care.
It's goodbye from Jordan.
See you later, folks.
It's goodbye from Andy.
It's been fun. Thanks a lot.
And it's goodbye from me. See you next time, guys.